that a story becomes educative by being repeated in new ways with new emphases. And education, in other words, grows when you can learn to do something with a familiar story and make it resonate. Anybody remember the Apology by Plato? Will somebody just say what the story is? I'm interested. If you really remember, can anyone tell the story of the Apology?
Really remember.
Socrates, the Apology. I'm serious. Will anyone please tell the story of Socrates? They didn't know.
John McNeil will.
I had a feeling. But John McNeil does everything. Can anybody else tell the story of Socrates? We'll let you do it if no one else will actually stand up. Will anybody else tell the story of Socrates and the Apology? All right, go ahead, Marie.
Oh, come on, Marie.
All right, she doesn't have a mic. You want to come up to the mic? Go on. I'm really interested to hear what she's going to say.
The Apology is the story of Socrates being on trial for impiety, and pretty much it's him not apologizing at all for doing what he believes and standing up for what he believes in, which is pretty much what we do every single day.
What happens at the end?
At the end, he is convicted, and he dies for what he believes in, and he doesn't ever apologize for it.
Awesome.
Sorry, John.
So, I didn't ask Marie, she just remembers, and she did a great job. Here's how I would tell it, and I had the benefit of studying it for 30 years and having it written down. Marie just did better than I did, and she just did off the top of her head. But here's how I would tell it. A long time ago, when philosophy was being born in a cave in a marketplace in Greece, there was a trial. At that trial, very old, very ugly, very ironic, yet somehow still very honest person had been going from person to person in his hometown, town actually about as big as Providence, Rhode Island, and this improvident, ugly, strange man had been asking them questions that made them think about what it meant to be educated, about what it meant to be in community, about what it meant to be good or political or just. Because of this, and because some of the people he talked to had become deeply involved, has nothing to do with Providence, deeply involved in the ongoing corruption and loss of the town's democracy, a traitorous turning over of democracy to a corrupt set of oligarchs, and nothing to do with anything now. Right? Because of this, a jury of his peers found him guilty and voted to put him to death. So this story says, philosophy begins in a cave where there's an oracle. The oracle says, know thyself. And in a trial where the attempt to know yourself is put to death. Philosophy begins by getting itself in trouble, you might say, and by putting itself at odds with the very people who are supposed to be persuaded to take it up as a pursuit. But this man who started philosophy in the way we've all come to know and talk about wasn't bitter when they told him he had to die. Rather, he saw the verdict of death as perhaps a great benefit, and definitely an opportunity for, you ready, continuing education. So he spoke to these adult students around him who had given him the opportunity to talk with him. Those adults who returned, who were well older than the 18, 19, or 20-year-olds who had previously taken his conversations and then gone out drinking and made a mess of the town. Seriously, it happened. Alcibiades was one of his 18 to 20-year-old students who made a complete mess of things. Right? So after they tried the sort of traditional college approach, Socrates is like, dude, it's over. Continuing ed for me. Okay? He actually says that in another dialogue. So he spoke to these older adults, and he said, this is the quote, this is like me trying to, the only thing I can do is give you that text. I mean, they all said it. But he says this quote, to you as being my friends, I want to show the meaning of what has occurred. To you as being my friends, I want to show the meaning of what has occurred. Guys, just take a step back. What a ridiculous statement, right? I mean, he's talking to those people who were in the courtroom. It's like an all-day thing, an all-day trial. Many of them were jurors in the courtroom who voted for his acquittal. He's only talking to people he likes, basically. They all lived through the trial. They all witnessed this old, ugly man practicing his continuing education. What possible meaning could there be that all these people had somehow missed, and this ugly, ironic man all by himself had caught? Surely he's either joking or arrogant, right? I mean, by the way, there's no doubt that many philosophers to this day, even at Providence College, are viewed as either joking or arrogant, right? I mean, how else could this stuff matter except to jokers or arrogant people? Well, it seems from what is written down that these friends of this man did not think him to be joking or arrogant. It seems they thought there might be a need for them to figure out the meaning of what occurred. And I'm going to presume upon you this evening to let me do something similar. I'd like to talk to you a bit about your time at Providence College. I know you've lived through it, and I know you might want to leave very soon. Another hour of Costello talking to you can seem like a long time. But I want you to relax. I locked the doors, and I've canceled your plans. I even called the babysitters and promised them you'll pay them double. So it's all good. All right? I'm just kidding. Maybe. Not about the hour, though. Page 5, there's only an hour. But back to our story. What is the meaning of what's occurred here at Providence College campus for you? Unlike Socrates, it's not true that you are on trial for your life. What is true is that the trials of your life were part of your education. It's a good singer there. I've worked on that a while. John and I share some ways of talking about ourselves. I think I haven't realized until
You are an amazing man.
So the meaning of your college experience has been one of studying while balancing family obligations, working full-time jobs, recovering from illness, from divorce, from the death of parents and friends. You've had to miss events with your children or your spouse or your friends because you were writing philosophy papers or studying fire science or education. What you gained in a reduced tuition relative to the day school, you paid for in tension in the home. Each time you sat down with a book, with a project, with a paper, you had real obligations that could not be met. And each time work or home obligations became too noisy or real or immediate, you had to negotiate with professors or staff or fellow students so that the ice storm you had to be out in to repair electric lines, or the drawer that had to be balanced before you could leave the bank, or the real estate deal that had to be closed, or the children who had to be cared for or given medicine, so that attending to these things would not leave you so far behind you couldn't catch up. So the meaning of what occurred then is that education was paid for with compromise, negotiation, and conflict. It was as much happening to your family and to your friends as it was happening to you. And sometimes, no doubt, stress that built up boiled over. Stress that 18-year-olds would not have, though they bring other issues to the table. Because 18-year-olds don't have the developed set of obligations that you do. And this means that the graduation from Providence College for you is not just a celebration, but an ethical demand. You have to now turn back to that family, that spouse, those friends, those children, that job, and you must attend to them. You must take time to show them the meaning of what has occurred. For if you do that, you can honestly say that the stress and conflict were worth it, that you were worth it. You can show that you have become more than what you were. If you believe, like Socrates, there's something profound in the struggle to grasp at justice, goodness, the texts of education, then you can continue to prove your ability to find the meaning in what occurs around you. Like Socrates, your education is an imperative to be kind. to attend to everyone who was involved in your balancing acts, to give an account of your life here. I'll repeat that. Education, I think, is the attempt, the ongoing attempt, to give a meaningful account of your life in all its richness and possibility, in all its choices and echoes and limitations. Socrates actually says to the people who voted to put him to death, he says, "You thought you would avoid giving an account of your life by putting me to death." He said, rather, just the opposite will happen. And I'm sure there were times when reading philosophy or theology felt like an effort in absurdity. Why on earth do we have to struggle with this stuff? And work would call, or the kids would get sick, or the memories of military service would intervene, and the obvious importance of those things would distract you from the potential that each beautiful, brilliant, difficult text or project or problem has to shape your life. But you pushed through. And so what occurred, in short, is a long journey toward self-governance, the thing that some towns and nations forget how to do. And toward moving beyond what seems closest and most obvious, to what is in itself a bigger priority than you realized. A mom or a dad, an aunt or an uncle, a friend or a lover who is now a college graduate after struggling for so long is someone to look up to in wonder and amazement. A co-worker who followed through is one in whom to place more trust or responsibility. What I would ask, and I'm proud of it, is that you not stop working with difficult texts or complex problems. I ask that the meaning of what happened here to you stay alive in your minds. I ask that you continue to unpack for yourself the meaning of what has occurred, and you begin to reflect on it, because it isn't obvious yet. Read more Plato. I swear, you read more Plato, you will become more obvious. Continue your education in justice. Do more math. I know. Do more math. Right? Study political science and economics in newspapers, journals, and books. Read as if the meaning of what has occurred here depended on it. Because it does. Read and write as if your professors were still there, looking over your shoulder. We won't be there. I mean, probably. But now you can govern yourselves as if we were there. Didn't know you were going to say that. That's kind of funny. Continue your education. Show everyone the meaning of what has occurred here. Because it was never the case that we, the professors, were just educating you, the students, in a top-down, unilateral fashion. Even the ones who believe that is not true. And I can, we can go outside afterwards if they still believe it. But it's not true. You were always educating, you were always educating us too, sometimes more than we could educate you. So I'll return to Socrates for just a bit. This speech in which he talks about the meaning of what has occurred is the first and last speech in public that he ever gave. And when he talks about the meaning of the courtroom appearance, his speech, and the verdict, he turns it almost immediately into a plea for education to continue. It is they, the hearers, who must now step up and philosophize. He puts it this way. Here's another quote. "This much I ask, when my sons grow up, cause them the same kind of grief that I caused you. If you think they care for money or anything else more than they care for virtue. Reproach them as I reproach you, for they don't care for the right things." That's hard. That's a hard thing. I mean, you don't have to read much more just to remember that so many people in this room are getting an education, and one of the big concerns is, will I make enough money? Will I get a leg up in my career? And yet, there it is. What is education? Is it going to be more than money? Is it going to be more than a career? I'm not sure why else you'd have to listen to philosophy for 4 to 6 years unless there was something more happening. Right? We need to continue to educate one another, to turn over the care of our democracy and our children and their education to each other. We need to look to virtue itself as the teacher, and all of us, professors and students, parents and children, as a community of learners who work hard to uncover what virtue, what the text, what the best things are. We need to write dialogues instead of speeches. That's kind of why I wanted someone brilliant like Marie to come up and talk about stuff. We need to write dialogues and conversations instead of lectures. Plato got that. He literally wrote plays. And he wrote dialogues. We need to get that the first college, what Plato called the academy, began by writing dialogues, began by conversation. There was a reason that you all came here to Providence College, and Heather and Marjorie and Ajit and John, they all gave you a variety of reasons. I mean, you could have gone to URI or RIC or any other continuing ed place. Sometimes I like to think the fact you came here was because we offered something more than a leg up in your career. Sometimes I like to think it was because something in philosophy or theology or the liberal arts called out to you. I like to think it was something in us that called out to you and affirmed your worth in our shared venture. Maybe that wasn't true. Maybe we were just cheaper. We are cheaper. You gotta tell people we're cheaper. But regardless, what I hope happens is that you remember this place, this time, and that you share your ongoing, continuing education with us. Come back, write, talk about us with other people, or if you can't do that, then read. 10 years from now, I sure hope you are reading interesting stuff. That would be the judge of the education. What are you reading? Read as if reading and thinking were all that stood between you and a diminished life. Read and think and converse as if Socrates was spending his last days with you. Because I believe if he were still around, he would want to. This is where he would be. Right here. I mean, like preferring to be here as opposed to in a day school. I actually think he'd want to be here. He would be proud of you. I know I am. So well done. Well done.